What's going on, everyone? Good morning. It's Adam from Green Auto Services and welcome to a new video. In today's video we have a 2019 Land Rover Discovery Sport 2-litre diesel. In today's video we're actually carrying out a full service, which actually means all of the filters are being replaced along with your general oil service as well. So that will include an oil and an oil filter, air filter change, cabin filter change, and just as importantly, a fuel filter change. And if you enjoy what you watch, or perhaps learning a little something, please don't hesitate to drop a like button. More importantly, hit that subscribe button. Okay, there we go. Let's get straight into it. Welcome back. So off camera I have done all my service checks. I've looked over all the lights, the steering, suspension, taken the road wheels off, the tyres, brakes, everything like that. Now, good news and bad news. The good news is overall this car is in great condition. However, I have spotted two items which do need addressing. I'll just spin you around and take you to the first one. Basically the near side front tyre, which remember is the side which is closer to the curb and potholes these days, we have found a lump in the tyre wall. Let me spin you around and I'll just show you exactly what I can see. So this here is the near side front tyre, so this is the passenger front. Straight away I notice there's a little bit of tear in the outer wall. Nothing that I'm overly concerned about, but obviously there's been a bit of an impact there. But however, just over to this side, now it's going to be difficult to see. So where my finger is, you might just be able to see it, there's actually a bit of a lump there. So I'm going to bring you down just to see if you can see its profile. Yeah, there we go. Can you see that? There's just a lump there. Now the actual length of it is about so long, but that is definitely a significant lump. Now this is normally caused by damage on the inside of the tyre. There's probably going to be a little bit of a tear and the pressure of the tyre is just pushing that out. Sadly from an MOT point of view though, that is a failure. So I'm going to price up a tyre for the customer and get that sorted for him ASAP. Now, the second thing as well, the customer did warn me that he's actually been topping up the coolant on a regular basis. Whilst I was under the vehicle, I've actually found the source of it. There is an external water pump or an external coolant pump on the side of the engine, which is driven by the auxiliary belt, which allows the coolant to circulate around the engine and stop it from overheating. That does look like it's leaking, so I'm going to have to price him up a new water pump. However, for the next bit, I'm now going to get the vehicle back down to the ground, and the first maintenance item that we're going to do is replace the oil filter and then drain the engine oil. So stay tuned and let's get the vehicle back down and get into the engine bay. Okay, here we go. So I've got the vehicle down, so we're now in the engine bay. So before you do an oil change, you really want to get the vehicle up to operating temperature, get the oil nice and hot. It makes it a lot easier and efficient for as much of the potentially contaminated oil to drain out when we take the sun plug off underneath. First things first though, we need to replace the oil filter. So I'm going to spin you around and show you exactly where on this particular engine it's located. So bear with me. So this is the engine bay of our 2019 Discovery. So if your engine looks anything like this, you want to go to the top left side, normally where your AdBlue filler bottle is, or filler cap is located. And actually, if you look between the fuel filter and the AdBlue, there is a black oil filter cap. That is your oil filter right there. So you do need a particular size wrench to get that plastic cap off, but it should only be tightened up to approximately about 25 Newton meters. So I'm just going to prop you up to the right, and then we will get that removed and I'll show you a little bit closer when I get it out. Okay, so here is the oil filter itself. So it literally came out as one whole piece. Now the items that we replace are obviously the actual oil filter itself. So with these, all you literally just need to do is just put pull it out. Always make a note of which way these oil filters go in and go out. Sometimes they're universal, like these ones. It can go in either way and still be absolutely fine, but some of them maybe have like locating tabs or anything like that, so just watch out for that. So we just put that to one side. We're going to dispose of that. The only other thing that we're going to replace whilst we're here is that there is a rubber seal which goes around the outside of the oil filter housing cap. So you just want to get a small flathead screwdriver and you just want to pop that off just like that. Now we want to thoroughly clean it. So all you need here is just some brake cleaner, and we just want to get off any oily residue and get it prepped ready for the new filter. Get inside there as well. Make sure you get any potential old oil out of there. Doesn't have to be perfect, but the more cleaner it is, the better it is. There we are. And then that will just eventually evaporate, and then you're ready for the new seal and the new filter. So here is the new filter and the new seal. Now before fitting, you always want to marry it up with the old one just to make sure that everything looks correct. So firstly, you want to get your new seal and you just want to gently pop it over the cap. Very important to keep it in the recess where it actually locates. And then with the new filter, you just want to pop it in there and you want to hear a little click, just like that, and that is in there. And that's all you literally need to do. But however, for installing purposes, we want to get a fresh bit of oil just to coat the new oil seal, so that when you're tightening everything up, this will then glide in nice and easy and not kink or anything, and therefore compromise the seal itself. So we're just going to get a little bit of oil, and you just want to coat it all the way around to make sure that's nice and lubricated. And that is literally it. Now we're ready to put it back into the vehicle. So before we put the new oil filter back into its housing, the only thing you want to do before we do so is just to make sure there's any excess oil that you can actually siphon out. Just belts and braces to get any contaminants out. Now, just looking down there, you have to take my word for it. Everything, once I've taken the oil filter cap and filter out, everything is now then drained down to the bottom of the engine. So all we need to do here is just carefully put it back in and then tighten it up back to 25 newton meters. Okay, so now that the new oil filter and cap has been installed, we now want to get the vehicle back onto the air so we can drain any oil which is left in the engine, which is all collected in the sump. To help everything drain a lot easier and better, it's always a good idea to take your oil filler cap off. Just allows the engine to breathe with air whilst it's draining out, and then I normally like to pull up the dipstick as well. Just makes everything that little bit easier. So let's get the vehicle up in the air and drain the oil. Okay, so here we are underneath the vehicle. Now, there is actually an under tray which covers the bottom of the engine. There is actually a small access panel in the under tray to allow you to get to the sump plug bolt. However, I like to remove the entire under tray purely because it gives you a better view of the engine to see if there's any other issues. However, you can do it however which way you like. In this case, this is the 13mm sump plug bolts which we need to remove to drain all the oil. So let's do that now. Okay, so here is the sump plug bolt which I have taken out. I've also cleaned up so it will give you a good view on what you're looking at. It's just a standard bolt. The only difference is that you do have a rubber washer at the base here to stop oil leaking out. Now you do need to replace these. Although this one looks in very good condition, you, for good practice, always have to replace them out just in case. So you do want some sort of little pick. I've got a small little hooky pick here, and you just want to get in there, just hook it out like so. Now, unfortunately, oil filters, the majority of oil filters do not come with a new washer or sump plug seal in the kit, so you do have to get these in separately, or at least make sure you have some in stock. These are quite common sump plugs and washers, and it just so happens I have, let's get you focused in there, there we go. And it just so happens I have a new one in stock, so you just want to gently pop that over and just push that down to the base so it sits in there nice and flush. And because it protrudes out ever so slightly, when it tightens up to the sump, that will make a perfect seal. So from here, once that is all done and the oil is draining to a point where it's just starting to drip, you will never get all of the old contaminated oil out, but when it just starts to drip and slow down, we can then put this straight back in. Okay, so after about 10 minutes or so, it has now reduced itself to a rather slow drip. So at this point, I'm more than happy that enough oil has come out. So we now need to put the new washer sump plug back in and tighten it up to 23 Newton meters. Okay, so it is now time to fill up the engine. I've put the sump plug back in as you saw. I've also put the under tray back on, which is just a various amount of 10mm bolts, so very, very easy to take on and off. Now this particular engine takes 6.5 litres of engine oil, and there is a specific grade for the engine. So I am using a high spec comma oil, which is a 0W30 as recommended by Jaguar Land Rover. This is specifically designed for the more modern petrol and diesel engines, which just helps to maintain the engine for the year until you change out the oil again, because you've got to change the oil every year. Unless you're doing high mileage, then you change it even more frequently. But with these diesel engines, and more specifically the DPF filter, they need very high grade specific oil to help keep down any soot and ash content to stop the engine and the exhaust system from blocking up. So let's put all 6.5 litres straight into the oil filler cap, which is this one down here, and then we'll run the engine up, get the whole oil circulating around the engine, and then we'll use the dipstick to make sure it is on the maximum level. Okay, so I've just started the engine up and removed the dipstick. Hopefully I can get you focused in on that. So I don't know if you can see that. This is the bottom of the dipstick, and you've got a hole at the bottom, which is for the minimum mark, and a hole at the top for the maximum mark. Take the dipstick out, give it a good wipe down, make sure it's nice and dry, pop it back down into the dipstick, and then just see where the level is. If it's anywhere between minimum and maximum, it's good, but we do ideally want it on maximum, not over, bang on. If it is a little bit low, just top it up a little bit by little until it is on the maximum mark. So you can probably see there, if it ever gets focused in, there we go. Now actually, the level is nice and clear, but it is just shy a little bit from the maximum mark. And don't worry if you think the oil looks pretty black already, beside the fact that we've actually put in fresh oil. That is always going to be the case. You will never have golden oil in a pre-existing used engine. It's always going to come out like that, but that's not to worry, that is perfectly normal. Okay, so I've just topped it up, and as you can just about see, that little hole on the end there, that is now bang on maximum. So the engine oil is all done. We're going to pop this dipstick back in and we're going to move on to the next service item. Okay, so the next service item we're going to be replacing is the air filter, which is located in the air filter box right here. Now there are 6 screws that you do need to remove to get the housing apart, but because it's connected to the intake and the mass airflow sensor, what I recommend to do is just to make your life a little bit easier, for the sake of an extra couple of moments, disconnecting the mass airflow sensor and this Jubilee clip holding the air intake on. You'll be able to take the air box off to access the air filter a lot easier. Okay, there we are, and there's your air filter. And as you can see, it's getting a little bit discoloured. Actually, there's quite a fair bit of debris in there. So this is definitely the first time that the car has had a air filter. So these air filters, I believe, are due every 4 years or 40,000 miles. Now, the vehicle isn't 4 years old yet. However, the customer has reached over 40,000 miles since his last service. And this definitely has not been replaced in its last service. So this is absolutely bang on time schedule, mileage-wise, to be replaced. So you just take that out, discard. Now, there potentially might be some debris in the, which there is. Well, all these leaves and things, so actually I'm going to quickly get a hoover and we're going to suck all of that out. So just to show you, inside the airbox, I've taken a fair bit out, but you can see all of those leaves and debris in there, which ideally we need to remove before fitting the new air filter. And it's as easy as that. Once that's all now nice and clean, we need to get the new air filter and install it in reverse order compared to how we just took the old one out. Now you'll probably notice quickly, it is a specific shape, so it can only go in one way, but this is the filter side, so this is where all the air from the outside is going to be coming through, filtered, and then clean air is coming out this side into the engine. So we want to make sure this side is facing towards the engine, and this side is facing what effectively is the air intake from the outside. It will only go in one way, so it is quite difficult to get it wrong. And then just pop that down there, and then get the lid, which, just to show you here, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 Phillips head screwdrivers just holding that in place. But there is one thing I need to make you aware of though. I did pop it off beforehand. You'll probably see just here, I hope you can see that, it's a little breather pipe, which quite easily slips on to that little spigot right there. If I can get you focused anytime soon. There we go. So you can see the little spigot right there. It's a breather pipe which just needs to pop straight back onto there, so do not forget that. are. So that's now secure. We want the mass airflow sensor plug back on there, and then the air intake just pulled back over, and then with the Jubilee clip, just nip that up to create a nice tight seal. There we are, and that's the air filter done. Okay, here we are, so down at the engine bay. So the next service item that we need to replace is the fuel filter. Now this is due the same time as the air filter, every 4 years or 40,000 miles. Always a good idea to take the new fuel filter out to make sure it looks correct. And also give you a view of what you need to replace and how it's going to come out and go in. From what I can see, you've got 2 fuel lines which we need to disconnect. We also have an earthing wire that we need to disconnect, but that should just pull straight off. And then the whole unit should just pop upwards easily enough with a bracket that we can swap over, and it should be hopefully as easy as that. So with the first fuel line, we have a yellow tang on the top that you just want to push down, being a bit careful, and then that should just pull straight out. Now you want to be careful, there will be fuel spilling, so you maybe want to have a bit of roll or rag just to put around that to stop it from dripping out and contaminating anything. You just want to try and put that to one side. And then to remove the other clip, there is actually a metal tang around the top of it, which you need to lift up and then press the ears in, and then that will allow the fuel line to come straight off. It is as easy as that. And then at the back here, with what I presume is an earthing wire, you just want to very gently try and disconnect that from the back. Again, you might need a little pick just to help that come off. There we go. And then just put that to one side. I have already checked, the new filter does come with a new one of these connectors, so it definitely looks like the correct one. Now, there is another multi-plug connected just down here, but the actual cage to this fuel filter is blocking me from taking it off. So what I'll probably do is, when it comes to lifting this fuel filter out, I'll disconnect it at that point. Now I can see though that the front bracket here, there is actually a little tang that you've got to push in, which I'm doing, and then hopefully, okay, that is a lot more stiffer than I expected. Okay, so I've managed to just free it off now. So after pushing the tang just in here forward and giving it a bit of a wiggle, it does actually allow for the whole unit to come up and out just like that. And there we are, that's the entire fuel filter. Okay, so here is the new fuel filter. Now, I've married this up to the old one that's come out. It is absolutely identical. To give you a little idea on exactly how this is secured and comes out, these 4 ears locate in holes in the actual cage where this sits. And this tang, when it pushes down enough, will kind of slightly bend in, and then when it passes a gap, it will spring out and lock it in. So that is the tang right there that you need to push forward to allow the unit to come up out the cage. When I did push the old tang forward, it did snap, but that's absolutely fine because we're replacing the whole thing anyway. So just be careful, take your time, give it a little bit of a wiggle, and it will come out. There we go, and I don't know if you heard that, that just snapped into place. I've already put the multi-plug back on down here. That is now secure, and then it's literally just a case of reconnecting 1, 2 fuel lines, and when they click in place, that is exactly what you want to hear. Don't forget to remove the plastic caps off the new one, otherwise they definitely won't go back on. And then don't forget this earth wire clips straight back on to the new connector. There we are, and that's a fuel filter all done. Okay, hey guys, so we have now done the fuel filter in the engine bay. Now there is going to be a lot of air in the fuel system that we've introduced by changing it out, so we do need to bleed it. However, without manually bleeding it, sometimes, or actually a lot of the times, you can get away with just priming the system using the low pressure fuel pump which is built into the vehicle, or effectively the pump which is in the tank. So all you want to do is get into the vehicle and you want to cycle the ignition on and off. You don't need to start the engine, just cycle the ignition on and off so you can hear the pump priming the lines. So I'm just going to turn you around and just show you exactly what I'm doing. You want to do it about anywhere between 5 to 10 times, and that'll be pushing all the fuel through the new fuel filter into the common rail. And then when you start up the engine, the high pressure fuel pump will take over and increase the pressure, and then start and hopefully run constantly. So here we go. There we are, so ignition on, that'll be your fuel pump starting to prime the system. You can wait 10 seconds and then turn it off. Turn it back on again. And every time you do this, the fuel pump in the tank will be priming the low pressure side, ready for when the high pressure pump takes over when you start the vehicle. And then when you have done this about 5 times to start with initially, it may take a while for the engine to crank over and fire, but in my experience I do know that it will actually fire, and then you want to leave it ticking over for about maybe a minute or two. And then that will sufficiently bleed out any particular air which is in the system. So that is the 5th time I think now, so let's start up and see what happens. Okay, and I presume you can hear that. The engine fired up pretty much on the button, and the system is now bleeding itself out, but I think that's sufficient enough. As long as the engine continues to run, there we are, job done. Okay guys, here we go. So the last serviceable item is the cabin filter. Now this is the filter that filters all the air coming from outside through the vehicle and inside the cabin. So, now on these particular models, it is located underneath the near side front, so the passenger's footwell. So I'm going to spin you around now, show you exactly what I've done, because it's probably better to show you the parts that I've already taken out rather than try and show you as I try and take it out, because it's a bit fiddly. So let me show you what I've done. So coming down here into the footwell, the first item I took out is this large piece of plastic. Now this is just a cover to cover up all the wires and fuses that are underneath there. Now the way that was mounted was just like so. There are 3 retaining clips which look like these. You typically find these on a lot of Fords as well. The way they work is they just push together. They are sprung loaded, you push them together and pull them out. Take 3 of those out, plop them to one side, and then as this sits, you want to pull the bottom half of it out like so, and away. And then underneath, you will actually expose, let's get some light on that. Just at the back here, you'll see a nice big great hole. Now this is actually where I've already taken out the old cabin filter. There'll be a white door on the front with 3 clips that you just unhook and then open accordingly. Unhook from the back side, and then you'll be able to pull out the old cabin filter. So that's effectively how you get it out, and you are literally just putting everything in reverse order with the new one, which I will try and show you now, which is going to be a bit interesting, but forgive me if it's a bit of a shaky shot. So this is the new cabin filter. The only thing you just need to draw your attention to is that on the side of most, if not all, cabin filters, there are a couple of arrows next to of which it says airflow. Now this is obviously the way the air is flowing from the outside, which will be above here, going through that way and out the bottom of the filter. So the way this works is you basically want to have the arrows pointing towards the center console, or where the vents of the vehicle are going to be, and effectively that is the correct way to fit it. So in this case, where the actual compartment is orientated, we are going to be fitting the cabin filter with the airflow going towards the cabin. Okay, there we are, and we're in. Sorry if I managed to block you there. Obviously when you come to do it yourself, it'll be a lot easier and you won't have me in your way. There's also a couple of wires at the top here you want to look out for. Make sure you don't get them trapped. But you can hook it on, he says. Okay, there we are. I actually had the door on backwards, believe it or not. It hooks in on this side and then the 3 clips hooks on at the back. Went in a lot easier. Once that's done, you then want to put the plastic cowling back on in reverse order like I showed you, and that effectively is it. That is the last serviceable item done and dusted for this vehicle's annual service. Okay, and there we have it, guys. We are all done for the day. So just to recap, we have taken you through the steps of how to replace all of the standard service items on a 2019 Land Rover Discovery Sport 2-litre diesel engine. Now, by all means, this is definitely something you can do at home to save yourself some money. So on that note, if you've saved yourself some money, liked what you've watched, or perhaps even learned a little something, you know the drill. Hit the like button, and more importantly, hit that subscribe button. There'll be plenty of more money-saving tips and entertaining videos coming down the line. Thank you so much again for watching and for all your support. I'm Adam from Green Auto Services, and we'll see you guys in the next video.